On a warm, golden afternoon in a quiet American town, the streets were alive with the gentle hum of everyday life. The sun hung low in the sky, casting soft rays through the leafy branches lining the sidewalks. The small grocery store on Main Street stood at the corner, its glass windows reflecting the bustle of shoppers weaving in and out, their carts filled with colorful fruits, fresh bread, and everyday essentials. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other by name, where the familiar ring of the cash register mingled with the laughter of children and the chatter of neighbors. Among the crowd was a little boy named Ethan, no more than 7 years old. His dark curls bounced as he walked beside his mother, who held his hand firmly but gently. Ethan's bright, curious eyes darted around the store's entrance, drawn to the world beyond the automatic doors. He loved everything about the outdoors, the smells, the sounds, and especially animals. Today, something caught his attention immediately. A large German shepherd sitting quietly near the storefront. Max was a majestic dog, his coat a rich blend of black and tan, shining in the afternoon light. His deep brown eyes were calm and watchful, observing the passers-by with gentle patience. He sat on the pavement, his tail flicking softly now and then, his ears twitching at the faint sounds of children's laughter and car engines. Max wasn't just any dog. He was a loyal companion, trained and kind-hearted, known to the community as a friendly guardian. Most people smiled and waved at him, but today was different. Ethan's heart ached with affection as he gazed at Max. He longed to reach out and stroke the dog's fur, to feel the warmth and softness he imagined beneath those strong muscles. "Mom," Ethan whispered, tugging on her sleeve, "can I pet the dog?" His mother smiled gently, but shook her head. "Not today, honey. Max is waiting for his owner, and we have to finish our shopping." Ethan nodded, though his eyes never left the dog. He noticed how patiently Max waited, unmoving, almost as if he understood that rushing or barking wouldn't help. For a moment, Ethan imagined what it would be like to have such a noble friend, someone to protect you, to share adventures, and to never leave your side. It was a comforting thought in the busy world around him. The grocery store buzzed with activity. Nearby, a young couple debated which apples to buy. A mother tried to calm her fussy toddler, and an elderly man slowly pushed his cart toward the checkout line. The scent of fresh bread wafted through the air, mixing with the faint perfume of flowers displayed by the door. It was an ordinary day, peaceful and familiar. But then, across the sidewalk, a shadow interrupted the calm. A man emerged from the store, his face clouded with frustration. He wore a stiff jacket despite the warmth of the afternoon, and his steps were hurried, almost aggressive. His eyes locked on Max with an unmistakable scowl. Ethan noticed the change immediately. Something about the man's expression made the boy's stomach twist uneasily. The man's lips pressed into a thin line, his jaw clenched as he strode toward the German shepherd. No one said a word yet, but the tension in the air grew thick, like the calm before a storm. Without warning, the man raised his foot and struck Max hard on the side. A sharp sound of impact sliced through the quiet chatter. Max yelped, a high, frightened cry, and stumbled slightly. Ethan gasped, his hand flying to his mouth as his eyes widened in disbelief. The dog's calm was shattered. His body tensed, but he didn't retaliate. Instead, Max lowered his head, whimpering softly, as if confused and hurt by the sudden pain. Nearby shoppers stopped in their tracks, staring in stunned silence. Some covered their mouths, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. Others took a step closer, their faces etched with concern and anger. Ethan's mother held him tightly, whispering soothing words, but Ethan was frozen, his mind racing with questions he couldn't answer. Why? Ethan thought, tears pricking at the corners of his eyes. Why would someone hurt a dog that's doing nothing wrong? Max remained still, trembling slightly, his big eyes searching the man's face as if pleading for mercy. The man didn't say a word. Instead, he turned abruptly and stormed away, leaving a heavy silence behind him. Ethan's small hands balled into fists as he looked back at Max, feeling a surge of protectiveness rise inside him. The boy's heart was breaking, not just for the dog, but for the cruel moment he had witnessed. Around him, the world seemed to pause, holding its breath as a little boy and a loyal dog shared a quiet, powerful moment of pain and innocence. Sudden, harsh kick left a heavy silence that seemed to freeze the very air outside the store. For a few heartbeats, nobody moved or spoke. Max, the German shepherd, crouched slightly, his body trembling as he tried to understand the sudden pain. His warm eyes flickered with confusion and fear, searching for a sign that this cruel moment was just a bad dream. But the man's cold expression and swift departure told a different story, one that was harsh and real. Ethan's small frame shook as tears welled up in his bright eyes. His throat tightened, making it hard to breathe. He had seen many things in his young life, kindness, laughter, even sadness, but never such sudden cruelty. The sound of Max's whimper echoed in Ethan's ears, like a fragile plea for help that no one seemed ready to answer. The boy's hands trembled as he stared at the hurt dog, his heart aching in a way he'd never felt before. "Mom," Ethan whispered, his voice barely audible over the sudden hush that had fallen over the crowd. Why did he do that? Why would someone hurt Max? His mother knelt beside him, wrapping her arms around his trembling shoulders. She looked down at him with sadness in her eyes, trying to find the right words to explain something so difficult for a child to understand. "Sometimes," she said gently, "people forget how to be kind. Sometimes they're angry or scared, and instead of being gentle, they hurt others." Ethan's brows furrowed as he tried to process this. The world didn't make sense anymore. How could someone be angry enough to hurt a dog? Max hadn't barked, growled, or done anything wrong. He was just sitting quietly, waiting like always. The crowd around the store started murmuring softly, voices filled with shock and disapproval. Some people shook their heads in disbelief, while others looked away, unable to watch the painful scene unfold. An older woman placed a comforting hand on Max's back, speaking softly to soothe him. "It's okay, boy. You're safe now," she whispered. Max leaned into her touch, his trembling body slowly relaxing a little dot. Ethan wiped his tears with the back of his hand, but didn't look away. His gaze stayed locked on Max, his mind racing with questions and emotions too big for his age. A knot tightened in his stomach. He felt helpless and angry, and yet there was a spark deep inside him. A voice that whispered, "You can do something. You have to do something." Suddenly, the man who had kicked Max reappeared at the store's entrance. His face was still hardened, but now there was a flicker of something else, something almost like regret, buried beneath his tough exterior. He glanced quickly at the crowd, and then at Max, who was still trembling, but now watching him warily. The man said nothing and walked inside, leaving behind a trail of heavy silence. People began to stir, whispering to each other about what had just happened. "That was awful," an elderly man muttered. "No dog deserves that." A young mother pulled her child closer, shielding her from the harsh reality of the moment. The atmosphere, once light and carefree, had shifted to one of sadness and reflection. Ethan's mother squeezed his hand and whispered, "We need to keep Max safe, Ethan. He doesn't deserve to be hurt." But Ethan was already thinking ahead, his young mind filled with determination and a newfound sense of courage. This wasn't just a random bad moment. It was a call to stand up for what was right, to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. as Ethan looked around. He noticed the faces of other strangers who now shared his pain and confusion. He realized he wasn't alone in feeling this way. The town, a community that often celebrated kindness and neighborliness, had been shaken by this act of cruelty. And now, all eyes seemed to be waiting for something to happen, for someone to do the right thing. Ethan's small voice broke through the whispers. "Mom, I want to help Max," he said firmly, his tears drying as resolve took their place. His mother looked at him with pride and a touch of worry. She knew this moment would change Ethan, would teach him about courage, compassion, and standing up when it's hard. The German shepherd slowly stood, still trembling, but trusting that someone cared. Max's eyes met Ethan's for a brief moment. Silent understanding passing between boy and dog. It was a fragile connection, but powerful. Like a spark of hope in the midst of pain, Ethan took a deep breath, feeling a strange mix of fear and bravery. He knew this day, this moment outside the small grocery store, would stay with him forever. It was the moment when innocence met harsh reality, and when a little boy realized that sometimes kindness could be the strongest power of all. The lingering silence after the cruel act weighed heavily on Ethan's small shoulders. His eyes stayed fixed on Max, the brave German shepherd who had endured pain without fighting back. Ethan's heart ached, not only for Max's hurt body, but for the confusion swirling inside his young mind. He had always believed the world was a place where good people and kind animals lived peacefully together. Now that belief felt fragile, like a glass about to shatter. "Mom." Ethan's voice trembled as he tugged gently at his mother's sleeve. Desperate for answers, he didn't know how to ask. His mother knelt down to meet his wide, tear-filled eyes, her own voice soft but steady. "Why did that man kick Max, Mom? What did Max do to deserve that?" The question hung in the air, heavy with innocence and sorrow. His mother swallowed hard, searching for words that wouldn't shatter Ethan's tender view of the world. "Sometimes people are angry or scared, honey. And sometimes, when they feel bad inside, they take it out on others, even those who don't deserve it." She gently brushed a stray curl from Ethan's forehead. "But that doesn't make it right. It's never okay to hurt someone else, especially a dog like Max, who's only trying to be good." Ethan's brows furrowed deeply as he tried to understand. He had never imagined that anger could lead to such cruelty. In his mind, Max was not just a dog but a loyal friend, a protector who brought comfort and joy to those around him. The idea that anyone could harm him without reason was unfathomable. His small fists clenched at his sides, the weight of injustice settling heavily on his young heart. Around them, the store's customers whispered quietly, their faces reflecting shock and sadness. Some clutched their shopping bags tightly, while others exchanged concerned glances. Ethan felt the community's shared pain, as if the whole town had been wounded by the man's harsh actions. But in the midst of the sorrow, a quiet strength began to grow inside the boy, a feeling that he couldn't ignore. "I don't want Max to be scared," Ethan said firmly, voice steady despite the tears still glistening on his cheeks. "He didn't do anything wrong. I want to help him. I want to stop people from being mean to animals." His mother's eyes shone with pride, mixed with concern. She knew Ethan's heart was pure and brave, but she also knew the world wasn't always kind. As Ethan's resolve deepened, the man who had kicked Max reappeared at the store entrance. This time, his face looked less angry, more troubled. For a brief moment, his eyes met Ethan's, and something unreadable flickered there. Maybe guilt, maybe regret. But before anyone could speak, the man turned away and disappeared inside the store again, leaving the hurt dog and the small crowd behind. Ethan watched him go, his young mind racing. He didn't understand what the man's pain might be, but he knew that hurting Max wasn't the answer. If the man was upset, There had to be a better way, one that didn't involve kicking a gentle dog. The thought made Ethan's determination stronger. He decided that he couldn't stay silent, that he needed to do anything to protect Max and others like him. The German shepherd, still trembling, looked up at Ethan with trusting eyes. That simple gaze was all it took. Ethan felt a connection, a silent promise that he would stand up for Max, no matter how small he was. Around them, the townspeople began to murmur words of support, quietly agreeing that kindness must win over cruelty. "Ma, can we stay with Max for a little while?" "I want to make sure he's okay," Ethan asked, stepping closer to the dog. His mother nodded, wrapping a protective arm around him. "Of course, sweetheart. We'll stay right here." Ethan smiled faintly, feeling the warmth of her reassurance. It was a small comfort in a confusing moment. Ethan's mind spun with ideas. Maybe he could find Max's owner and tell them what happened. Maybe he could talk to the store manager about keeping Max safe. Or maybe, just maybe, he could find a way to help the man who had hurt Max, because sometimes kindness wasn't just about protecting animals. It was about healing people too. With newfound courage, Ethan took a deep breath and looked up at the people around him. The air was thick with emotion, pain, sadness, but also hope. The moment outside the grocery store was no longer just about a dog and a kick. It had become a turning point, a chance for a little boy to remind everyone that compassion starts with the smallest voices. As the sun continued to cast its warm glow over the quiet town, Ethan whispered quietly to Max, "I'll help you. I promise." The dog's tail gave a small, hopeful wag. In that simple exchange, a bond was formed, one that would change not just the boy and the dog, but the entire community. Ethan's heart pounded loudly in his chest as he took a small step forward, the air around him thick with the tension of the moment. His young mind was swirling with a mix of fear and fierce determination. He had seen the pain in Max's eyes, the confusion and sadness, and something inside him refused to let the injustice stand. The crowd had quieted, all eyes shifting too. The small boy who was about to speak, the man who had kicked Max, stood near the entrance of the store, arms crossed, his face still shadowed with anger. He glanced around, clearly annoyed by the attention. But Ethan felt something else too, a flicker of uncertainty. The man's harsh demeanor was like a wall, but the boy was ready to face it, even if he was trembling inside. "Sir," Ethan's voice was soft but steady as he took another step closer. "Why did you kick Max?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. The man's eyes narrowed, surprise flashing briefly before being replaced by irritation. "Mind your own business, kid," he snapped, his voice rough. But Ethan didn't back down. Instead, he squared his shoulders and met the man's gaze head on. "Max didn't do anything wrong. He's just a dog who wants to be kind," Ethan said, his voice gaining strength as the words came from his heart. The crowd watching felt a wave of emotion wash over them. Here was a small boy standing up to cruelty with nothing but truth and courage. The man's lips twitched as if about to retort, but something stopped him. Ethan's bravery had cracked the armor of his anger, if only for a moment. The dog, sensing the shift in mood, looked up at the man with hopeful eyes, tail slowly wagging. It was as if Max knew this confrontation could change everything around them. Whispers started spreading. "Look at that kid. So brave. Maybe he's right. Max is just a good dog." The tension began to ease, replaced by a quiet respect for Ethan's fearless heart. The boy's voice softened, but carried a power beyond his ears. "My dog, Buddy, was like Max. He was gentle and loving. When Buddy died, it made me very sad. I think hurting Max hurts me too." Ethan's words struck a chord in the man's face. For the first time, his eyes looked distant, as if memories he had buried were stirring. The crowd grew still, waiting for the man's response. He looked down at Max, then back at Ethan, his anger melting into something more complicated: regret, maybe even shame. The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken feelings. Then quietly, the man said, "I've been having a hard time. It's not an excuse, but I didn't mean to hurt him." Ethan's eyes brightened with hope. "Maybe when people are kind, it helps everyone feel better," he said gently. The man knelt slowly beside Max, reaching out a hand. Max hesitated, then leaned into the touch, his tail wagging a little faster. The crowd watched, some with tears glistening in their eyes. As a moment of healing unfolded, nearby, the store manager stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "We need to make sure this doesn't happen again. Animals are welcome here, and they deserve respect." People nodded in agreement, a sense of community and care filling the space where pain had once lingered. Ethan smiled shyly, proud but humble. He realized that sometimes standing up took more courage than he had ever imagined. His small voice had made a difference, not just for Max, but for the man who had hurt him, and for everyone watching. The town's heart seemed to beat a little. Stronger in that moment, Max stood tall, no longer trembling but full of quiet confidence, as if he understood that kindness was winning. Ethan's mother hugged him tightly, whispering words of love and pride. Around them, the community began to buzz with new energy, inspired by the simple, brave act of a little boy. That afternoon outside the grocery store wasn't just about a dog or a harsh kick. It was about courage, compassion, and the power of a single voice to change hearts. Ethan had faced cruelty with kindness, and in doing so, had shown everyone that even the smallest acts could lead to the biggest changes. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, the crowd slowly dispersed, but the story of Ethan and Max stayed with them. It was a story about hope, about healing, and about a little boy who refused to look away. And in that story, everyone found a piece of themselves, a reminder that kindness, no matter how small, could light the darkest places. After the tense but hopeful confrontation outside the store, the air seemed to shift in the little town. The painful moment had sparked something deeper than anyone expected. Sense of community and a call to kindness that spread quietly, but powerfully. Ethan's small act of bravery had touched hearts, but there was still more to come. As the crowd slowly dispersed, Ethan stayed close to Max, gently stroking the dog's soft fur. Max leaned into Ethan's touch, his eyes brightening with gratitude and trust. The boy's heart swelled with warmth. He knew he had made a difference. But the story wasn't over yet. Just then, a woman emerged from the store, her steps purposeful and her expression concerned. She was a tall woman with warm eyes and a kind smile, carrying a clipboard and wearing a jacket embroidered with the logo of the local animal shelter. Her name was Miss Harper, and she had heard about what happened from the store manager. "Hi, Ethan," she said softly, kneeling down beside the boy. "I'm here to help Max and any other animals who need us." Ethan looked up at her, curiosity and hope shining in his eyes. "Will you help Max?" "He's scared and hurt," Miss Harper nodded, her voice gentle. "Absolutely. We'll make sure he gets the care he needs, and we'll work to make sure no animal here is ever treated badly." Again, the store manager stepped forward, introducing Miss Harper to the small crowd that had gathered again near the entrance. "We want this to be a place where everyone, people and pets, alike feel safe and respected," he said firmly. The community nodded in agreement, their hearts moved by the boy's courage and the shelter's support. Ethan watched as Miss Harper carefully examined Max, checking for any injuries. The dog wagged his tail weakly, his trust growing with every gentle word. "Max is a good boy," she said, smiling. "He's lucky to have someone like you looking out for him, Ethan." The boy blushed, but felt proud. "I just want him to be happy." Ms. Harper explained that sometimes people act out of fear or frustration, and that's why the shelter also worked on educating the community. Kindness isn't just about helping animals, it's about understanding why people do the things they do and teaching them to choose better. Ethan nodded thoughtfully, realizing that helping Max meant more than just healing a dog. It meant helping the whole town become a kinder place. Inspired by Ethan's determination, the store manager suggested setting up a small, pet-friendly area outside the grocery store with water bowls, treats, and a notice board for lost or found animals. The community quickly embraced the idea, excited to make their town a safe haven for animals and their owners. That evening, Ethan's parents sat with him at home, listening as he recounted the day's events in vivid detail. His mother wiped away a tear, amazed at how much her little boy had grown in courage and compassion. His father nodded, proud but thoughtful. "You did a brave thing today, Ethan. You reminded us all why kindness matters." But Ethan's thoughts were already turning to the future. He dreamed of ways to help more animals and people, inspired by Max's gentle eyes and the kindness that had begun to bloom around them. He wanted to be a voice for those who couldn't speak up for themselves, a protector of the innocent and the vulnerable. The next day, Ms. Harper returned with a team from the shelter to give Max a full checkup and some much-needed care. Ethan came along, holding Max's leash and whispering encouragement. The dog's tail wagged with growing energy, and Ethan felt a surge of hope. Max was not just a dog anymore. He was a symbol of kindness, resilience, and the power of a little boy's heart. Word about Ethan's bravery and the new pet-friendly initiative spread through the town like wildfire. Local newspapers ran stories about the boy who stood up to cruelty, and neighbors began sharing their own stories of kindness and care. The community found strength in unity, inspired by a moment that had started with pain but blossomed into hope. As days turned to weeks, Ethan and Max became inseparable. They walked through the town together, greeting friends and strangers alike. The little boy who had once felt powerless now carried a quiet confidence, knowing that even the smallest voice could change the world. One afternoon, as Ethan and Max rested under the shade of a big oak tree near the store, Miss Harper approached with a gentle smile. "You know, Ethan," she said, "sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to show kindness when it's hardest. And you did that today." Ethan looked up, his eyes shining. "I just want to help," he said simply. "And you already have," Miss Harper replied, "more than you know." In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of the community and the gentle presence of Max, Ethan understood something important. The world could be a better place not because it was perfect, but because people like him chose kindness, courage, and compassion every day. The days after Ethan's brave stand outside, the store felt like a new chapter for the entire town. What had started as a painful moment had blossomed into something far greater, a community rallying to protect and care for its most vulnerable. Ethan and Max became symbols of hope, reminding everyone that even small voices could spark big change. Local grocery store became a hub of kindness. Water bowls filled with fresh water appeared outside the doors, along with treats for visiting dogs. A brightly painted wooden sign read, "Welcome, friends," a simple message that echoed far beyond the shop's entrance. People stopped by to thank Ethan and Miss Harper for their efforts, and many brought their own pets, eager to be part of the growing movement. One Saturday morning, the town's community center hosted its first ever Kindness to Animals event. Organized by Ms. Harper and the shelter team, families arrived with their dogs, cats, and even a few rescued rabbits. There were games, educational workshops, and a special talk from Ethan himself. The little boy who had once felt powerless now stood confidently in front of a crowd, sharing the story of Max and the importance of compassion. Ethan's words struck a chord with everyone listening. He spoke about courage, not just his own, but the courage it took for the man who had kicked Max to face his mistakes. Sometimes, Ethan said, people don't know how to show kindness because they're hurting inside. But if we all try a little harder, maybe the world can be a better place. The audience erupted into applause, their hearts full of hope. Meanwhile, Max was the star of the event. He basked in the attention, his tail wagging happily as children petted him, and volunteers handed out bandanas and treats. His once trembling body was now strong and healthy, a testament to the love and care he had received. Ethan stayed close, his hand resting gently on Max's head, a quiet promise never to let him down. But the town's transformation wasn't just about animals, it was about people too. The man who had kicked Max, named Mr. Dawson, had started attending the shelter's community support meetings. With help from counselors and neighbors, he began confronting the troubles that had made him act out in anger. Slowly but surely, he worked to change his ways, seeking forgiveness from the town and from Max. One afternoon, Ethan watched as Mr. Dawson approached the community center, holding a small bag of dog treats. Max's ears perked up, and the dog wagged his tail cautiously. Mr. Dawson knelt down and offered a treat, his voice soft. "I'm sorry, Max. I never wanted to hurt you." Max accepted the treat gently, sensing the sincerity in the man's words. Ethan smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. It was a reminder that healing was possible, that even the darkest moments could give way to light when people chose kindness. The community had come together, not just to protect animals, but to support each other in becoming better, more caring neighbors. The local school joined the movement too. Teachers incorporated lessons about empathy and respect into their classrooms, and students organized fundraisers to support the animal shelter. Art projects, essays, and even plays celebrated the themes of kindness and courage. Inspired by Ethan's story. As the weeks passed, Ethan noticed that the town felt different, lighter, warmer, more connected. Strangers smiled at each other. Neighbors stopped to chat, and animals wandered freely, welcomed and safe. It was as if the small act of courage from a little boy and his dog had sparked a ripple that spread far beyond the store's doorstep. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan and Max sat on a bench overlooking the town square. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, carrying the soft sounds of laughter and chatter from nearby families. Ethan's mother joined them, wrapping an arm around her son's shoulders. "You've done something wonderful, Ethan," she said softly. "You reminded us all that kindness is a choice, and that it starts with each of us." Ethan nodded, feeling the truth of her words settle deep inside him. He looked at Max, who rested his head on Ethan's lap, and smiled. "This is just the beginning," Ethan said quietly. "There's so much more we can do." Max's tail thumped in agreement, as if ready for whatever came next. In that moment, surrounded by love and hope, Ethan understood that courage and kindness were the most powerful forces in the world. Together, they could heal wounds, bring people closer, and create a future where no one human or animal would ever have to suffer alone. With the town's newfound spirit of kindness firmly taking root, life began to feel brighter for Ethan, Max, and everyone around them. The once small spark ignited by a single act of courage had grown into a blazing flame of hope, warmth, and unity. But for Ethan, this was only the start, a new beginning filled with purpose and promise. One crisp autumn morning, Ethan woke up buzzing with excitement. Today was the grand opening of the town's brand new animal shelter, a dream brought to life thanks to the community's hard work and generosity. The shelter wasn't just a place to care for animals. It was a symbol of everything Ethan had fought for: compassion, safety, and second chances. Max trotted happily by Ethan's side as they walked to the event, his fur shiny and healthy. The shelter's bright, welcoming sign read, "Hope Haven." a name chosen by local children in a contest that had sparked creativity and joy throughout the town. Families gathered around, carrying flowers and homemade treats to celebrate the occasion. Miss Harper, the shelter's director, greeted Ethan with a warm hug. "You made all of this possible," she said softly. "Your courage inspired the town, and now we have a place to protect and care for animals like Max. You should be very proud." Ethan blushed but smiled, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. Mayor stepped up to the podium to officially open Hope Haven. She spoke about the power of kindness and the incredible journey the town had taken from that painful day outside the grocery store to this joyful celebration. "This shelter stands as a testament to the strength of our community and the difference one person can make," she said. Ethan listened intently, knowing she spoke the truth. During the ceremony, Mr. Dawson, the man who had once hurt Max, approached. Quietly, his eyes reflected a new light, one of remorse, healing, and hope. He knelt down beside Max and gently patted the dog's head. "Thank you, Ethan," he said quietly. "You taught me what it means to be kind." "I'm sorry for what I did, and I promise to be better." Ethan smiled, feeling a sense of forgiveness and peace. It was a powerful reminder that even the darkest mistakes could lead to growth and change when met with understanding. As the celebration continued, Ethan was invited to speak again. This time, he shared his dreams for the future world, where every animal was loved, every person was kind, and no one ever felt alone or scared. "We all have the power to make a difference," he said, "no matter how small we are. All it takes is a little courage and a lot of heart." The crowd erupted in applause, inspired by the boy's words and the journey they had all traveled together. Around him, children laughed and played with puppies. Volunteers signed up to help at the shelter, and neighbors shared stories of kindness. Later, as the sun began to set, Ethan and Max sat quietly on a hill overlooking the town. The gentle breeze carried the sounds of celebration, mingling with the rustling leaves and distant laughter. Ethan felt a deep sense of gratitude for the community, for his family, and for Max, who had been his steadfast friend through it all. "Thank you, Max," Ethan whispered, scratching behind the dog's ears. Max looked up with bright eyes, as if saying, "Thank you too." Ethan knew the journey wasn't over. There would still be challenges, moments of fear or sadness. But he also knew that kindness was stronger than cruelty, and courage could change even the hardest hearts. With Max by his side and the whole town behind him, Ethan was ready for whatever came next. That night, as Ethan lay in bed, he thought about the day's events and the future. He dreamed of new adventures, of helping more animals, of teaching others about compassion, and of building a world where everyone felt safe and loved. For Ethan, the story that began with pain and fear had transformed into one of hope and healing. And with every heartbeat, he knew that a new beginning was possible, not just for him and Max, but for everyone willing to stand up for what was right. Years passed, but the story of Ethan, Max, and their town became a legend, one told again and again as a reminder of the power of kindness and courage. What had started with a little boy standing up for a hurt dog grew into a legacy that changed lives for generations to come. Ethan had grown older, but his heart remained as gentle and brave as ever. He continued to care for Max, who had become not just a pet, but a faithful friend and symbol of hope. Together, they had inspired the town to build something beautiful, a community united by empathy and love. Hope Haven, the shelter, flourished beyond anyone's dreams. It became a beacon of safety and care, welcoming animals and people alike. Volunteers from all walks of life came together to nurture the animals and teach kindness to children and adults. The shelter offered not just shelter for pets, but healing. For people, hosting workshops on empathy, conflict resolution, and emotional support. One autumn afternoon, Ethan returned to the grocery store where it all began. The store's entrance had changed. A colorful mural now covered the wall, painted by local artists and schoolchildren. It depicted Ethan and Max standing proudly side by side, surrounded by animals and smiling faces. The words, "Kindness begins here," were written boldly across the mural. Ethan stood quietly, feeling a wave of emotion wash over him. The mural was more than art. It was a symbol of the journey the town had taken, and the difference one small voice could make. People passing by stopped to look, some whispering the story, others smiling in recognition. The man who had once kicked Max, Mr. Dawson, now worked as a volunteer at Hope Haven. He had found new purpose in helping others and repairing the wounds of his past. Seeing him there, patient and kind, reminded Ethan how powerful forgiveness and change could be. At the shelter, Ethan was now a youth ambassador, speaking at schools and community events about the importance of compassion. He shared his story with humility and hope, encouraging others to be brave and stand up for what was right. His words inspired countless young people, many of whom became volunteers and advocates themselves. One evening, as Ethan walked through the town square with Max by his side, a small group of children approached him. Their eyes sparkled with curiosity and admiration. "Ethan," one of them said shyly, "how did you know to be so brave?" Ethan smiled warmly, crouching down to meet their gaze. "Sometimes," he said gently, "being brave just means doing what's right, even when it's hard. Kindness isn't always easy, but it's always worth it." The children nodded thoughtfully, their hearts touched. As they ran off to play, Ethan felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The future was in good hands. That night, Ethan sat by Max's side, looking up at the stars. The memories of the day he saw Max kicked out of the store came, rushing back, the fear, the sadness, and the moment he found his courage. He realized how far they had come together. Max rested his head on Ethan's knee, and Ethan whispered, "Thank you for being my friend." The dog's gentle eyes seemed to say, "Thank you for saving me." The town continued to grow, but its heart never changed. The kindness that Ethan had sparked lived in every corner, in the caring volunteers at Hope Haven, in the children learning empathy, and in the simple acts of love that people shared daily. And so, the story of a little boy who saw cruelty and chose compassion became more than just a story. It became a legacy, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, kindness can light the way, and courage can heal the deepest wounds. Ethan and Max had shown the world that a single act of bravery could ripple out and change everything. Their legacy was one of hope, unity, and the unbreakable bond between humans and animals. The story would be told for years, inspiring countless hearts to stand up, speak out, and choose kindness, because in kindness, the world finds its greatest strength.